Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berks County. I'm the Reverend John Cullinan. I use he, him pronouns. I am your minister here. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together not with a list of required beliefs, but with a set of shared values centered on an unconditional, unshakable love. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are right now, here in the sanctuary, or watching from home, as a lot of you are today, you are welcome to be a part of this community. As we're gathering, I want to extend a special welcome this morning to any visitors or first-time guests we have with us, and I invite you to join us after the service here in the Gerber Room for coffee and conversation. I would love to introduce myself, answer any questions you might have about our community here. If you're joining us online for the first time, take a moment to write your name in the chat box and let us know where you're zooming in from. You'll find a link to our website and today's order of service in the chat box as well. Now, I want everybody to take a moment to greet one another with a smile or a wave, a namaste. And while we're at it, turn around and wave and smile to the cameras there and say, welcome to our online friends. Let us know we're all together this morning. And now let us take a moment to center ourselves as we prepare for worship. Feel yourself grounded where you are. Feel the earth holding you. Take a deep breath in and out. Let us begin. Our chalice reading this morning is by Monica Jacobson Tennyson. This is a time for you to light your chalice at home, if you have one, while we light ours here in the sanctuary. Welcome. Bring what you bring, who you are, enriches us all. We say welcome to your joy, your hope, your pride. We say welcome to your grief, your fear, your anger, and the parts of you that are not yet ready to be seen and heard. We welcome to them as well. For we are people of faith, faith in our expansive welcome, faith in our ability to grow, faith in the precious gift of our truths, faith in the promise of trying, learning, changing, faith in our capacity to know ourselves and each other ever more deeply. Welcome to you who are gay, straight, bi, pan, lesbian, queer, questioning, unable to be contained in any word. Welcome to you who are trans, cis, gender, queer, non-binary, intersex, agender, beyond words. Welcome to you who are human. Welcome to you who love and are loved. Welcome to you who are blessed, which is all of you. May this time together be a blessing. Please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Brown, and my pronouns are she, they. And welcome to our second week of exploring the practice of inclusion. All month long, we'll be exploring how we can practice not leaving people, stories, and love for ourselves out. Today, our kids in their classes are going to be lifting up have lifted up the value of pluralism and how our faith calls us to learn from all of the world's religions while also exploring the way that religions get left out and treated as untrue or immoral or even evil. So with that in mind, I want to tell you a story, a true UU wisdom story called The Edict of Torda. A long time ago, in Hungary, there was a young king named John Sigismund. King John was a wise ruler who wanted all the people of his kingdom to live peacefully and respectfully with each other, no matter what religion they followed. In those days, people believed in different ways to worship God. Some people were Catholic, others were Protestant. Some followed the teachings of Unitarianism, which is a belief in one God. These different religions often caused arguments and fights because people couldn't agree on which was the best way to worship. But King John Sigismund had a different idea. He wanted everyone to be able to believe what they wanted without being forced to follow one particular religion. He believed that people should be able to worship God in their own way, peacefully, and without fear of getting in trouble or being punished. So, on February 18th, 1568, 457 years ago, King John made an important decision. He passed a special law called the Edict of Torda. This law said that everyone in the kingdom could worship freely according to their own beliefs. People could go to different churches, follow different religious leaders, and talk about their beliefs without being judged or punished. It was like saying, you are free to believe what you believe, and I will respect that. King John wanted his kingdom to be a place of kindness, understanding, and peace, where people didn't have to fight over which religion was the best. The Edict of Torda was one of the first laws in history that protected religious freedom. It was a big step forward in helping people get along despite their differences. And even though the kingdom wasn't perfect, it became an example of how important it is for us to respect and accept people for who they are, even if they believe or think differently from us. This is a wonderful story about our UU history and how our faith has always practiced being inclusive of and not leaving out other religions. The story of the Edict of Torda teaches us that everyone has the right to believe in what they choose, and we should always treat each other and their beliefs with respect, even if we don't always agree. Being open-minded and tolerant of others' beliefs is a powerful way to practice inclusion and make the world a better place. So in the week and days ahead, may all of us, kids and adults alike, remember that being inclusive of and respecting other religions is one of the ways we can lift up our value of pluralism.
It is part of our collective spiritual practice each week as a community to enter into a prayerful, meditative time. We call this time joys and sorrows. We ponder what has been painful in our lives and what has gone well. You are invited to take a few minutes to reflect on what you are carrying in your heart and mind this week. Who needs our care and concern this week? Those who are online may share joys and sorrows in the chat box, and those on site are welcome to come forward and place stones in our common bowl in silence for your joys and sorrows. Let's sing now together Spirit of Life, first in Spanish, then in English.
Spirit of life, come unto
our joys and all our sorrows, shared with others or held close and quiet in our hearts, let us enter into a spirit of prayer and reflection. Beloved Spirit of life, gracious source of all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to ourselves, to each other, to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. Help us this day, Spirit, to both remember and forget. Help us to remember that all are worthy of a place in creation. Help us to forget those doubts that call that worthiness into question. Help us to remember that there is more that connects us to the other than there is that separates us. Help us to forget the meaning of the word other. Help us to remember that this community embraces us always, through our greatest joys and our deepest sorrows. Help us to forget the fear or pride that holds us back from accepting that embrace. Help us to remember the vision of the world we are called to build. Help us to remember the power of our own creative love. Help us to forget our talent for destruction. Eternal, beloved, be our reminder and our clean slate. Hold us in peace and love, and give us vision enough to see the holy ground upon which we walk, no matter where our journey takes us. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. When I try to describe Unitarian Universalism to other people, and I get that question a lot as I meet more and more new people here in my new home, the pat answer I like to give is it's a community where we figure out how to live together in spite of, or better yet, welcoming our differences. And we can point back centuries to the roots of that practice in our churches. We can point back to the Edict of Religious Tolerance of the Diet of Torda that was proclaimed by King John Sigismund of Transylvania. Now, it wasn't a blanket freedom of religion statement. Not everybody was free to do whatever they wanted religiously under it. It was a message to communities within the kingdom that they could elect their own religious leaders. It was not dictated by the king any longer, as long as those leaders were either Catholic, Lutheran, Calvinist, or Unitarian. There are limits. And for several years, things worked. And then King John Sigismund died, still very young. And the next king of Transylvania was a super devout Catholic named Stephen Bathory. who wasn't so fond of this religious tolerance. He couldn't strike the edict down because it was popular amongst the people, but he did pass a law that said there would be no more innovation in religion allowed anymore, no more new ideas. We have reached our limit here. And meanwhile, in the background, he did everything he could to try to undermine the other faiths that weren't his own Catholicism. And then today in the Washington Post, I read an article about how even in this Christian nation that we supposedly are now, all of a sudden, Catholics and Lutheran are under fire from those very same Christians. It's like a mirror reflecting back into history right now. No more DEI is the magic acronymical talisman that we're holding out, or they're holding out, to try to ward off change. And that I stands for inclusion. Because exclusion is powerful. Exclusion has a lot of power to it because it sets the in-group and the out-group. It sets the terms by which anyone has power. It literally, quite literally, these last few weeks erases the unwanted people from the annals of history. Cole Arthur Riley, who's the creator of the Black Liturgies website and curator at, I love this, the Center for Dignity and Contemplation in Ithaca, New York, has this to say: I'm beginning to think alienation and rejection are the two great persuaders of our own unloveliness. The cunning will wield them against you so that you acquiesce to the systems of a community in order to retain membership in it. Perhaps you know what it's like to need to believe a certain doctrine or a creed so that you can belong in a spiritual space, or to vote a certain way to belong at the dinner table. When someone places your very belonging at stake, they are prodding an ancient wound. They're asking you to acquiesce to their system of community. If you want to join us, you have to be like us. If you want to join us, you have to change who you are, if that's even possible. And if you can't, there's no help for any of you. It is a form of existential violence. And it is designed to instill in us hopelessness and, or at the same time, a compromise of who we are. So what do we do in the face of that? What can we do even? What is the answer? Well, the answer this morning is be more inclusive. Amen. That's the end of the sermon. We are called to make inclusivity a practice of our faith. And inclusion and welcome as a religious principle dates far back, even before the history of the church, before Christianity. We can find it in the pre-Arabic or the pre-Islamic Arabic cultures, where the old saw is when a stranger comes to you, you feed him for 3 days before you ask him his name or about his family. We see it written into the rules of the order of Saint Benedict in the early monastic history. When a stranger comes, you feed and you shelter, regardless of who they are, regardless of who they are. That's it. That's all we got to do. Except that's really, really hard. That is very, very difficult, even for us open-minded, open-hearted Unitarian Universalists, and that's because, and I'm going to have you staring at me with question marks in a second here, we are too in love with tolerance. Go with me here. Freedom, reason, and tolerance as watchwords of Unitarianism date back also to Francis David in the time of King John Sigismund. Those were the watchwords of Francis David's faith. Tolerance, but, for Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Unitarians, nothing outside of that circle. And there's nothing wrong with tolerance in and of itself. Once upon a time, not far back in our history, when we first got involved in the civil rights movement, it was easy for Unitarian Universalists to get involved because as long as Jim Crow and racism could be framed as a form of intolerance, tolerance made so much sense. And so we marched in Selma, and we worked for the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Act. And we congratulated ourselves when the legislation was passed. But then when the critique of people of color in our own pews started to focus inward in the late 60s, not long after that, whoa, we found the edges of the circle. Wait, you're asking us to change now? You're asking us to consider something new and adapting to you? No. Over the last few years, I've come to think that tolerance is fine. It's okay. But it's not good enough. Because tolerance is conditional. It's a slightly gentler version of, to be with us, you must be like us. And I've been among Unitarian Universalists long enough to have seen it play out in our pews even before. In my early years, I used to get pulled aside by humanists in the congregation to say, "Would you please tell the God people to go somewhere else? This is our place." Or figuring out who the poor people in the congregation were, because they might not actually belong. Listen, we invited you into our space. You're welcome to be here, but be like us, or at least don't flaunt your differences quite so much. You are welcome to be with us at our invitation, but don't make us change for you. We're fine the way we are. It's like we're inviting people over once a year to, let's say, a Super Bowl party. And it's the same Super Bowl party in the same house every year, and this year there's new neighbors down the block, and so they've received an invitation to come. But they've been told about the potluck that happens at the Super Bowl party. Okay, Dan always brings his chili, and Brenda always brings her wings, and Tyler brings the queso dip, and Lavinia has this skillet cookie thing she makes that miraculously regenerates and is always there through the whole party. And wait, what's this platter of bulgogi doing on the table? Who put this here? Anyone? Where did this come from? Did you not get the clear message we were trying to give you? Dan brings the chili, and Brenda brings the wings, and Tyler brings the queso, and Lavinia brings the skillet cookie, and that's the party. Tolerance isn't good enough because it is a welcome to others on our terms, rather than a welcome of the whole person in their whole personhood. Russell Lehman, an autism and disability advocate, has this to say: inclusion isn't about being invited to sit at someone else's table. It's about building a new table together where each person's voice and presence matters equally. The act of inviting often implies a subtle power dynamic, as if someone is granting permission to belong. But true belonging isn't something that can be granted. It's something that should emerge naturally from a shared understanding and a mutual respect. So the question isn't just about who is included, but how we include. It's about building a new table together with each new soul that approaches it, because the table was open in the first place. Inclusion acknowledges, even embraces change. Inclusion understands that the community is a living, breathing organism and adapts like any living, breathing organism to the changes of the environment over time. Inclusion does not just tolerate change, but not too much change. Inclusion embraces. Even better, inclusion anticipates that we will be changed by the presence of others among us. C.B. Beale is a Unitarian colleague, a DRE, and the leader of the Justice and Peace Consulting firm. She practices or preaches to our churches about practicing a preemptive radical inclusion. Preemptive radical inclusion. Which she says means that we challenge what we already believe, the systems that have worked for us and that we enjoy, and lean into learning how other people experience those systems. Practicing preemptive radical inclusion means we have to change. In fact, it's a sign that we are practicing preemptive radical inclusion that we notice it is we who are changing. Preemptive radical inclusion is not a box to check off in a planning process. Instead, it is a lifelong practice. It is not a thing to do, but a way to explore and perceive. It is practice, practice, practice. And because it is practice, perfection is not required. It's always good to state that up front. Like we know it deep in our psyche somewhere, but it's always good to hear. Perfection is not required of us in this. And as we are practicing, we find we are the ones who are changing, Beale says. We find we're filling in gaps in the community that we didn't realize were empty in the first place. We find we're opening doors to pathways we had not seen before now. We figure out that bulgogi is freaking delicious. It becomes a way of being. It becomes embodied. Stephen Bathory, when he took over Transylvania, tried very hard to undermine the existing edict of religious tolerance. He tried ordering pastors to preach against the other religions that weren't theirs, and the leaders refused. Because the edict had become part of who the community was. It became a part of their identity. And so the ask became impossible. They simply would not do it. And that spirit is still alive and well in Transylvania. Even today, I got to take a pilgrimage out there in 2019 to celebrate the 450th anniversary of our partner church. Hold that number in your head for a second. 450 years. And at the service, they were joined by the Catholic priest down the road, one of the other Protestant ministers, and the Catholic Church even hosted the reception for the Unitarians after the service was over. In fact, about the only religion that is not welcome in Transylvania is the Romanian Orthodox Church, because the Romanian Orthodox Church, with the sponsorship of the government, is trying to be the only religion in Romania. They're not playing by the tolerance rules. So there we go. In the face of the wholesale dismissal and erasure of people from our stories, from our history right now, in the face of a growing intolerance to different faiths and different people, this is the best tool we have to be the inclusive community that we know is still yet possible. Because the history of the church over millennia, when it is at its best, are the times when it creates a community that lives differently, more connected, more loving, more inclusive, living differently in the face of what the empire might want us to be, living differently in a way that makes the king sweat. That's the whole point of this great pluralistic, inclusive experiment that is our own faith tradition here, to live differently from the demands of empire, to live differently out loud in ways that can be seen as a model to others, to say this is what is possible. It doesn't have to be like that. To live differently, deliberately, openly, and transparently about the ways that we welcome and the ways we are open to change because of that welcome. And in the process, let the results of our research and the learnings from our imperfections lead the way to something better. May it be so. Please join in singing hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us
As a community of faith, we share what we can with one another. We offer ourselves through the ministries of this church by giving to and receiving from one another. One of those gifts is our financial resources. Your financial generosity makes it possible for us to live out our principles in our church and beyond our doors, to live differently and live out loud, keeping hope and courage and forgiveness and compassion alive. You may make a contribution online today or place it in the baskets as they pass you by here in the sanctuary. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Have we given, and gratefully we have received. May these gifts be our hands in the wider world. Important announcements and upcoming events can be found on the back page of your order of service, on our weekly newsletter, The Univoice, which you can sign up for at our website, on our Facebook page, and elsewhere. Just a few to highlight this morning. First, as I mentioned last week, I will begin teaching a 6-part intro to Unitarian Universalist theology starting on Thursday, March 6th. That will be on Zoom. It will run for 6 Thursdays at 7 p.m. The classes last about 90 minutes, and together we explore the big questions of theology itself through a Unitarian Universalist lens. The link to sign up was in this past week's issue of the Univoice, and you can find it there. Our pledge program kickoff Sunday will be 2 Sundays from today, the 23rd of February. We'll have a service dedicated to kicking off the season and a luncheon after the service as well here in the Gerber Room. So come for the worship, stay for the food. And finally, mark your calendars if you haven't already. The installation service for your new minister will be on Saturday, March 29th at 3 p.m. We will have guests coming from all over the place to join us for worship, so I hope you'll be there. And also for the food afterwards. That's a pattern we have here. Now please rise once more in body or spirit and join us in our closing hymn, number 1017, Building a New Way. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace. But first this.
And practicing inclusion, whether it's your team or not, let us join in singing.